When I started this channel about 13 years ago, I didn't start it with the idea that it would be some sort of consumer advocacy channel or a right to repair channel or me fixing motherboards and showing people. It was me sitting in a chair and talking about my experience that day, mostly from running a business. When I started this channel, I had Rossman Repair Group, which is the repair company I was running, and Rossman Supply Group, which was the company that I was running into the ground. Yeah, there's really no other way to put that. And one of the things that I noticed and what I enjoyed about making these videos, particularly the ones in the business advice, business talk playlist, is that it helped me work through ideas and thoughts that I had that I wasn't really aware that I had until I sat down to do a video. Knowing that other people had the potential to watch or listen to what I was saying caused me to say things differently, and it caused me to think things through in a manner that I just didn't think them through before. I never thought that this channel would have more than maybe 5 or 20 subscribers, but that wasn't the point. It wasn't about how many people would listen. It was about the fact that people could potentially listen, and that kind of affected the way that I would say things. And I remember going to this I forget what you call it. I hate forgetting stuff like this in art because it means something to people. It was a puppet show, something like that. And I was talking with one of the people after the show, one of the ventriloquists, and somebody was asking him about how he comes up with the personality for his doll, and he said, "That's me." And he's like, well, that's not what you're like when I talk to you at all. He's like, no, that's me. You don't understand. That is me. That is a part of me that only comes out when I do this. And that was one of the most fun parts of YouTube for me, is me finding this other personality that I didn't realize that I had, and then applying it in this way, and then kind of incorporating it into me, and then actually using that to try and do some good in the world. The me that existed in 2010 would not have showed up to legislative hearings with a camera and said, I'm just going to record lobbyists bullshitting and then give my own response. I would have been scared shitless to sit there and even come up with anything. I would have been stuttering, or probably wouldn't have even walked in the room to try. I wouldn't have tried raising money to try and get bills passed, or do a lot of different things that I wound up doing with my business. I wouldn't have believed that I could just invest in stuff like data recovery and not have it be a giant fail after my old experiences. So what I really enjoyed about doing YouTube videos was the fact that I got to explore this other part of my personality and what I was doing. And I used to have this playlist called Business Talk and Business Advice, and I haven't contributed to that thing in about 8 or 9 years, and I feel bad that I haven't, because there's been so many other things going on since then. And that was kind of what started the channel. If you scroll back to the old videos, it's not me fixing motherboards or anything else. It was videos like that, just me talking at the end of my day about what went on. And one of the first videos that I had that really blew up in that way was reseller ratings. This was a company that was telling people it's about maybe $30 or $50 or $100 a month to use our service, and then they would hike the rates up exponentially as you got more business over time. And the reason they were able to do that is they were in a very unique position. Back in 2011 and 2012, if you were using Google Shopping, which is what you needed to have so that you would have your product show up at the top, you needed to have, if you wanted to have reviews show up, if you wanted to have stars, which is what's necessary for people to actually trust you, the only reviews that Google was grabbing at that time were reseller ratings reviews. So they knew that they kind of had you by the balls, and they would just kind of extort you. And I did a video talking about this, and then after that video wound up getting tens of thousands of comments saying spammer, misleading, and a bunch of thumbs down, all from Vietnam. And within like a couple of hours, according to my analytics, I did a video follow-up talking about the very interesting coincidence with regards to the reputation management type of thing that I saw going on. But anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about here was the experience that I've had in just fixing up some of the things in my house and dealing with some other repair companies as I go. Because what I've realized is that I've come to take for granted the employees that I have, how good they are at their job, and I've also admittedly, not to kind of stroke my own ego, but I think I've also taken for granted the degree to which I cared about my customers and all these small details back in the day, and the example that I was trying to set for everybody else that I hired so that they would live up to this particular standard. I try to avoid doing this thing where I tell you what to do, or I say you need to do this, that, or the other. Rather, I would kind of like to set an example so that you see what it is that I expect. So if you're sitting there and there's 3 customers in the store, and you are, like, let's say somebody walks in and you didn't at least acknowledge them. I could be sitting in my office and see this happen, which is 70 feet away, and I'll run to the front of the store and say, hey, what can I do for you? Or, yeah, I'll be with you in 1 second. I'm not going to say, you need to say hi to that customer. I'm simply going to do that to demonstrate I'm working on something, I'm fixing something, but when somebody shows up, we acknowledge every single person who walks in, because they'll be pissed if you don't. It's kind of like picking up the phone as fast as 911, that kind of thing. That's what Uline has talked about. And I think that the culture that we have is at a point where even if I'm not the one that's always there, that this stuff is just constantly reinforcing itself, because I have good people, and I'm very, very humbled, happy, and honored that they choose to work for me and not go off and work for somebody else that can probably afford to pay them way more than I can. I feel like I'm getting value that I haven't really earned based on what I can afford to pay people that are this awesome at what they do. So I am having some work done on my home, and I'm also doing some work on my home myself, and I thought I would talk about the experience of that, because it really led me to this understanding of what it is that I was taking for granted at my own company and what everybody here has built over the years. I have a lot of work to do on this place. I realized when I bought this house that I was choosing a house the same way that I used to build my relationships. Beautiful view, gorgeous view, horrible foundation. And there's a lot of stuff that I need to do to this house to make it into something that's something that will stand the test of time, for lack of a better way to put it. I knew that when I bought it. That's why I bought it. In the immortal words of John Grossbard, studio landlord at Planet to Planet at 251 West 30th Street, "If I made this place any nicer, you couldn't afford it." He was a cool dude. He always used to talk about when he had that studio back in the 70s, and he would walk over to the pizza shop on the corner on 7th Avenue and 30th Street, and he would bring literally just enough money to buy the pizza, because half the time he would go there, he would get mugged. I'm glad that I wasn't in New York for the 60s, like 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 70s, and 60s. Yeah. Anyway, this was one of the things that with this house. If it was any nicer, I couldn't afford it. So I've done a lot of my own little work, patching things up, doing some basic stuff with electrical. And there's some things that I don't know how to do perfectly, and I want them to be done well, not just the little patchwork crap that I've done on some of the mortar stuff that had cracks on it. So I try to find a professional. And in this entire process, I'm learning to appreciate all the things that my coworkers and the people that I work with do for me that other companies' employees don't seem to do for them. So first one is I have some mortar cracks around everything, and some of them are serious, and I just don't want to be patching them up in a half-assed way. So I remember having this one person show up, and he is looking around the entire place. I'm showing him where all these cracks are, and I'm explaining, here are the ones that are the ones I want addressed immediately. Here are the ones that are not as big a deal, but I'd like to get all of them done, but this one immediately. And I'm going over all these cracks. This house is about 3 stories, and it has a very high ceiling on the 3rd floor. So it goes up really high, and there's some windows that are very high. So I remember asking him, okay, how do you plan to get up there? And I asked this because I saw about a 24-foot ladder in his truck, and I didn't see one of those, giant extension ladders. And he said, oh, you want me to do that? And I'm thinking to myself, we had a 20-minute walkthrough of my house, and I explicitly pointed over and over again to that. And that I used for that job was when I was going around everything. I asked, okay, so just so I know, how do you plan on getting up there? Because that's pretty high. Do you know how to get up there? And he looks at me like I have 2 heads, and he goes, of course I plan on getting up there. You told me that that's where one of the cracks is, and you showed it to me. I have to get up there. Now, here's what I would do. I would build scaffolding, and here's how that scaffolding is going to be built into the price. Here's how much time it would take to build a scaffolding. Here's everything that I have to do. And once I get up there, that's what I'm going to be able to do. Okay. And what I'm looking for there is that the wheels are turning, that you're thinking. Whether or not scaffolding is a better solution than having that little truck thing with the joystick thingy that, that allows you to go up and stuff, that personally, I don't care. What I care about is show me and demonstrate that you listen to what I said and that you are thinking. If you're willing to do that, I'm willing to pay you. And I'll pay you so much more money than I'm willing to pay the person that can't think. Ironically, the people that wind up quoting the most are the people that go, oh. I find the next person, and this is another one with a window thing. This is somebody who does windows, and he also said, well, we do doors as well. And there's some work where I was able to kind of, cobble together a shitty old 20-year-old warped builder grade window into something that's not a piece of shit. And there are others where I'm just not fucking with it. I'm going to leave it to a professional. This gentleman comes in, and we spend about 30 minutes going over everything. He says we also do doors, and I have a decent iron door, but it's one of those doors where you put your hand to it, and you can just feel the freezing. It's not even that, you feel the freezing coming off on you, even if it's perfectly sealed and weather stripped and everything else. So it doesn't have that thermal thing, whatever the hell in between it that kind of insulates or whatever. I'm not a door expert. So, okay, fine. you can give me an idea on a door. Now, I have 3 floors in this house. The second floor of this house is bedrooms and small rooms. The third floor is a living room and a kitchen. And the first floor is really just a garage. There's nothing here but a garage. You have an area downstairs that's probably less than 150 usable square feet. I would say probably not even 100 usable square feet that is usable for just walking into the house and then turning around for the stairwell. So this has 2 small closets in it. And one of the closets I took off the door of and I put 2 litter boxes there. So the first floor of my house is mostly a 4-car garage, which is used for storage of just all my crap, and then where the cat takes a shit. So this is Blackberry's bathroom. And I explained, for the windows for this room, I would like something of quality. And if I'm going to replace this door, I would like something that's sturdy, but I have no desire to have a window. I don't care about a window. My cat likes privacy. And even if she didn't like privacy, I don't feel like spending extra money for a window on a door so that people could watch Blackberry take a shit. It's just not where I would like to spend my money. And I wound up getting a quote back that's somewhere in the $70,000 to $95,000 range for everything. And it includes a quote for a door that is $24,000 with a beautiful, gorgeous window. And then he offered a couple of different options for everything and some cheaper. There was another door that was about $17,000, and it also has a beautiful, gorgeous window. And he's actually talking about the quality of this window in contrast to others. And then I just pointed out, you remember the 3 minutes we spent talking about how the first floor of my house is essentially where my cat takes a shit, and now I need a window? Oh. Now contrast that to the people that I have in my business. And again, this is the thing where I'm talking about taking things for granted, because these are jobs where, again, it's like $3,000 to $7,000 for this type of mortar work, $30,000 to $90,000 for this type of window and door work. And then we're talking about stuff which is a few $100s. So somebody shows up and they are absolutely stressed out like crazy because they are going to college, and I think they were graduate students, and they had their PhD thesis or something like that on there. And this person's on the phone, oh my God, talking to their parents and talking to their classmates and other, I think, friends. I don't know exactly. It was a one-way phone conversation. I didn't really know all of it. They were freaking out over what was going on with their master's thesis or something like that. And the person that does data recovery at the time is going to provide a quote once they do an estimate for the drive. So we give you an idea what it is. If it's basic, 100. If it's firmware, 2 to 4 whatever. If it is stuck heads, 4 to 900. If it's bad heads, 9 to 2000. If it has bad platters. It's just, we give in the basic ranges, but we'll call you. Now, a day later, we give her a call back and we say, okay, good news. It looks like there are weak heads. If you want everything, that's going to cost this much to replace. If you don't need everything, I would be able to do it much cheaper. And just in case, we've already grabbed the thesis folder that we saw in the root, because I figured that was probably the most important thing. And it was on the... it was on the portion with the good heads, and it was also like one of the root folders. And she's like, oh, you knew that was the most important? And he said, oh yeah, I heard what you were talking about in the lobby. And she had this weird, you could hear these, that type of stuff, oh my God, they actually fucking listened to me and gave a shit. And I'm never gonna remember being that proud of an employee when I heard him say that, because it was obvious that you kind of caught on to a thing that I'm doing when I'm listening to all these customers, and I'm having these conversations back and forth, and the little things I pick up on and try to pick up on, and you did that, and this person was absolutely floored and amazed. So rather than quote them for something they probably didn't need, you quoted them for something that would have cost them less, but also you thought ahead. You knew that they needed this. You knew that if that particular, so you grabbed that immediately. Again, this is not a business where we go through people's data or anything. If you're going to copy everything off, you're going to see C, Windows, System 32, all that kind of crap that's in the, whatever the hell is it. BlackBerry, I already fed you. Cut the shit. Just cut the shit. You got fed 3 times. I spent 20 minutes playing with a fucking laser pointer with you. I spent 15 minutes petting you. I get my time now. It's my time, Barry. That cat's a fucking terrorist. Yeah. You actually listened to the customer. You were paying attention intently to everything that they were saying. And then when they needed something, you were able to offer them the exact solution that they needed rather than something that was different, because you were paying attention. This type of stuff matters. Really does. It makes a difference. And it's hard to state how important this type of thing is when you're running a business. To be clear, I know somebody out there is going to say, oh, how'd you know there was a thesis folder? If you're doing data recovery, you don't look through people's shit, but if I have to grab this stuff and copy it over, it's not like I'm doing this as I do it and then clicking 30 times to see if I got it. It's just you see the folder name on the root directory. It is what it is. like the people that I have here are not are people that are actually like looking through people's stuff. It's not even a moral or ethical thing. It's just, as you could see in some of the older videos I've done, they play basketball at the store, they play blackjack, they play chess, they gamble on poker and shit like that. They play soccer in the street. If there's free time, they're not like interested in looking through people's shit. It's a fucking waste of time. But he grabbed what was necessary because that person needed it, and he knew that she needed it because he was listening. So he offered her that solution. And he offered her that because he could tell from the rest of the conversation that her finances were probably not in the portion where she would prioritize getting everything if it cost 4 to 6 times as much money. So he was able to offer the right solution. And you'll see this said a lot on business websites or when businesses have blogs or rants, that customers, they'll always leave a bad review when they have a bad experience, but they won't leave a good review if you just do what you're supposed to. And that's their complaint when they talk about getting a lot of bad reviews. And technically they're correct, but you're not going to get a good review for, I said this thing was going to be done at 5, and then you do it by 5 and you do it normally. The way that you get really good reviews and the way that you get people to the point where they're like evangelizing you to everybody else is by paying attention to those little details that people are not expecting you to, and really doing that, going above and beyond. And it's one of these things where that kind of thing where you're like going above and beyond, actually, I see this as just basic normal elements of being in a service-based business. But when I deal with other businesses, I realize that really is going above and beyond. I used to think that was the standard. And the more that I kind of dig in and become a customer of these other places, the more I realized just how much I was taking my own employees for granted. Another example, when it comes to having conversations about just getting some information about the business and its practices. So for instance, there was one other place I went to and I asked for a quote for the same kind of thing, some of the windows that were messed up. And they said, well, here's what we use. And I started asking about other different types because, you have the aluminum ones, you have the hurricane grade ones, you have the composite fiberglass ones, you got vinyl ones. There's all different types of windows. And they offered this. So I was kind of asking, well, if I'm looking for something a little that's maybe more sturdy or high end and I'm looking to pay more, what do you think of these? I don't know anything about windows, but I'm just kind of curious, like what is your take on these? Because I've read different things online, and I know that if I want to get bad information, the best place for that is the internet. As I said in my last video, if somebody had multiple sclerosis and they're saying like eat steak and it'll fix it. It's just, the internet is filled with stupid ass shit. I could say that I have fucking stage 4 brain cancer. Somebody will tell me like take a D vitamin and you'll be good. It's the fucking internet. So I'm talking to them and I ask, what do you think of these ones? And they say, well, we don't offer that. So I said, okay, like I understand if you don't offer it. Just like, do you mind me asking like what you know about that particular type of window and what the reasoning or anything is behind it? Just because I'm ignorant, I like to understand. It's just, we don't offer it. We just don't offer it. Is there any particular reason for it? Is there any like, thought process that went down? We don't offer it. Anyway, I wind up going online to look up this particular company, and they are rebranding one particular type of window that they are getting insanely cheap because they only purchased that particular window. And I just want to compare and contrast this to, again, something that gets done here if we are saying the same thing. So let's say that somebody shows up and they say, my GPU is dying, I would like you to reball it. And we say, well, we don't offer that. And they go, why? Well, what you'll hear here is something that goes like this. Well, I understand that reballing is cheaper than the other solutions we have. And you may think, well, you're just trying to charge me more money, and point taken. The reason we don't reball is this. The chip itself is the problem. It's not the solder balls. And one of the ways that we can prove this is I can heat that chip to 125 Celsius, which is way too low a temperature to melt solder balls. And if I do that, the chip is going to start working again. The reason it starts working again if I heat it to 100 or 125 Celsius, BlackBerry! God damn it! Don't knock that over. If you knock that over, I'm getting a dog. I swear. What's happening here in your situation is that the bumps between the silicon and the substrate or something like, I forget the exact thing because I haven't had to have this conversation in like 8 years. The bumps between the chip and the actual thingy that then has the solder balls on it is the problem. So it's these bumps that are bad, and that's inside the chip, and I can't fix that. So when you're reballing it, or you're not actually fixing the problem, it's not the solder balls, it's inside the chip. And if I do that, it's going to fail again in 90 days. Now, I can show you this list of businesses that offer the same service. All of them have a 30-day warranty, and all of them have horrific reviews. You'll notice that on eBay, they have great reviews because you can't change your feedback after 45 days. But when you look at Google or Yelp or anything else, you'll see hundreds of reviews where they're all 1 or 2 star, edited saying that it failed again. And I don't want to provide service that's going to fail again. So if you want to do that, I can show you how you could do it yourself. You could use a hairdryer for this. You just put something around the rest of the board, you heat the top, and it's going to work again. You can use my own equipment for that. I'm not even going to bill you for it. You could have a seat because I usually have an extra seat at the store. But if you want it to work, I do have to replace this chip because the chip is the problem. What I'm doing there is I'm kind of explaining the entire thing. Now, whether or not they believe me, whatever, that's on them. But what I'm doing with this process is I'm demonstrating to you that there is a thought process here, that we are thinking, that it's not just, we don't do that. It builds trust. And there are people that are going to listen to this and say, Louis, it is the solder balls. Oh, it's not. It just fucking isn't. But there are people that are not going to believe that, and there are people that are going to think I'm just trying to upsell them on a chip replacement, which is one of the reasons that I'll tell them, this is the actual problem. You can use my station for free. I got all this stuff. I got a little preheater and all that stuff you could use. But they may think I'm trying to upsell them or bullshit them. But it demonstrates that I'm thinking. And that's usually better than just giving them the blanket answer of, we just don't do that. Why not? Because people are going to wonder, why are you not open to giving me that information? Why are you hiding something? So when you explain how you do business, it often builds that type of trust. And when I look it up and I see that the particular type of windows that person was using were fairly low grade and not even fit for this area. You're in hill country. This house is 3 floors up. It's 117 degrees in the summer. 17 degrees, really? Like, the shit that he was offering would have lasted through probably 3, maybe 5 years. Very, very bad. But you get a different answer. Now, one of the other people that I had show up, he gave me a couple of different options for Windows. And when I asked about one particular type, he said, we don't offer that. And I did the same thing. I said, well, can you explain to me, can you go back and I don't know much about Windows, I'm ignorant, but can you explain what it is that led you to not offer that? And he says, well, what I've noticed with that window in 40 years of installing it is that there is absolutely zero difference in the durability or the longevity in this particular environment in this area of hill country between that window and this window. But that window can cost $500 to $800 more per window. And I would feel like I was kind of ripping off the customer doing that. I make more than enough money installing this window. There's no difference in my profit margin installing either of these windows. So I'd rather install the thing that I feel better installing. And also, if I have less options to offer the customer, there's a lower likelihood of them being confused. And if I offer somebody 6 or 10 or 50,000 different choices, they're more likely to just throw up their hands and say, oh, I don't know, and have this decision paralysis and not make a decision. Or if I can say, this is what I believe is best for you based on experience, and I only have maybe 1 or 2 options for you based on what is best for your area, they're more likely to say yes, and I get business, and I'm happy. Now again, whether or not you agree with his thought process is irrelevant. What I've done there is I can see that you're thinking. The wheels are turning. When he explains all that to me, he's demonstrating that he is thinking, that he's using his brain, and that he has a reason that he came to this particular conclusion, which is much better than we just don't do that. When you explain these things, you may think that you don't have to explain it. You just said, I didn't offer something. Why are they mad that I said that? But the reason is that people want to feel like you are taking out the time to explain something to them. They want to feel like they're valuable. What you're actually saying when you say, I just don't do, what you're saying is, I don't find your time valuable. So something that we may say in addition to this is, somebody says, like, won't you just replace the screen on this? When we say we don't offer it, I would say something like, well, we used to be able to buy that part for $32 to $90, and it used to be in great condition. It used to come grade A from LG, and Apple has completely cleaned up the supply chain for that so that doesn't exist anymore. Now I can buy a $250 to $300 part that is a factory reject that looks like shit, or I can go to Apple's self-service store and pay $400 to $600 for this particular thing that Apple's already going to charge you $400 to $600 to fix. We only like to do things when we believe that we are the best option. If I do not believe in the best option, I don't offer it. And here, if I offered this, I would just feel icky. So that's why for your particular model, we don't offer it. But in that moment, they feel it's the same thing. I'm not offering that service, right? But if I say that I just don't offer that, they're going to walk away thinking, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. Whereas if I explain everything, I'm still not fixing their problem, but they feel like they dealt with a human being, and that makes a massive difference. And when I hear people that work in my business talk to customers in this way, it is something that puts a smile on my face, because I realize that this is a culture that's kind of taken hold and they're all taking part in it. Another one is when it comes to pricing. This is a giant mistake that I made, but I did it just for comic relief. I wanted to, in my industry, there are companies that I've said that are, in my opinion, advertising and marketing firms that masquerade as data recovery companies. Drive savers. I mean, like, drive savers. There's no other way to put it. Like $2 to $3K for a charge port that doesn't work in an iPhone to get your data back. That's just, there's no excuse for that stuff. But I mean, it's one of the things that happens when you're paying $50 to $150 per click with pay-per-click advertising. It's something that happens when you have giant affiliate payments that you give to people who refer your business. You have to pay for that somehow. But I still just, for me, it's not a business model I want. But with marketing stuff. So there was this one company that I've seen on television. Their flyers are everywhere. They spam the crap out of my inbox all the time. Anderson Renewal or something like that. I knew this was going to suck. Because again, in my industry, I know what it's like when you deal with the marketing firms masquerading as repair firms. I know it's going to suck, but I call them anyway, just for the fun of it. So I explain the type of window that I have. I explain the style of window. I explain the size. I go over the measurements of it and everything. I tell them about the type of house it is. And I said, to be clear, I don't expect you to tell me a price. That's impossible, and that would be unfair. I'm not going to ask you for a quote for the job or anything. I'm not going to hold you to anything even based on the question that I have. Can you tell me how many zeros are involved in doing this for each device? Like, am I looking at hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands? And they said, no, we cannot do any of that over the phone. And I said, so, but I'm not asking for a price. I'm just asking, can you, and I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm saying that on a recorded line because okay, I don't know if they record it, but you get the point. No idea of how many zeros there are. So you can't tell me for this type of window if I'm looking at 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000 based on the type that I'm looking for. I'm not even, and they're like, well, we have a wide range of windows. Let's say I just want an average one that's similar to this. Yeah, just something available. Can you give me an idea if this is in the hundreds of thousands for a single window, tens of thousands? And they said no. I hang up on you. If you have an issue with, let's say you have an issue with a hard drive. Again, I can't tell you what is wrong with your drive. That is not going to happen over the phone or email. But I can give you an idea. If it's a basic recovery, $100, I don't care if it's basic. I have people here that are getting paid living wages, and I have to pay rent and everything else, that are going to spend time on your thing. If you want them to spend time on your thing, I have to pay them. So for that basic recovery, $100, let's say it's a bad sectors or something like that, maybe a few $100s. If you are having an issue where you hear, let's say you have a firmware issue, then that could be anywhere from a few $100s up to $600 if it's something that's more difficult. If you have this issue with stuck heads where you hear, let's say you put the drive to your ear and you hear beeping, sometimes that could be somewhere in the range of $450 to $900, sometimes on the lower end depending on the drive. If you hear clicking, that can be an issue with bad heads, something like that. You may be looking at anywhere from $900 to $2,000. If you have clicking and you hear a scraping noise, that means that you probably have platter damage, which means $2,000 and up. I don't know where your drive falls, but this is the approximate range of things, right? I can give you that so that you have an idea of how our business works. And more importantly, it's not about just giving you the prices. It's again about showing that the wheels are turning. I do not want to spend $40 or $80 or $100,000 with somebody when they pick up the phone and the wheels are not turning. If you cannot tell me if a basic ass window like the one that I've described to you is going to cost me $100,000, $10,000, or in the $1,000 range, I don't want to do business with you, because that's a basic question. It's not something where I'm trying to trick you in a script. I'm just trying to figure out, did this get forwarded did my phone call get sent to a forwarding service in the Philippines that's answering the phone for 16 different businesses that has no clue about this, or did it go to somebody that's actually invested in the business? And if the person that's picking up the phone is not invested in the business, that's just not something that I'm interested in. You know, in the video that I was talking about, where Northridge Fix was talking about Paul Daniels, and I had, he had this many he had like 20 or 30,000 subscribers when I was in the womb, and now he's up to like 35 or 40, and I have this many and everything else. When he's talking about success and what people should do to become more successful, we all have different ideas of success. And I've heard him say in other videos that he only does email customer support now. I don't know if this is still true, so correct me if I'm wrong here. My apologies if I am. But I remember when he was saying, we don't do phone, we're not going to deal with phone call customer service anymore. And for me, like by my metrics, if I got to the point where the person who picked up the phone couldn't answer a question like how many zeros, I would feel like I failed. like just complete and utter failure. That's not the way I want to run a business. That's why I was saying we all got different metrics for what makes us successful. I don't want to have like, when I remember he said something like, we have about 8 weeks or plus devices in the queue. If I have 8 weeks of devices in the queue, I fucked up. Like, I got to show up to work 16 hours a week. I got to hire 10 new people. And I have. My business is the one time that I ever had an 8 or 10 week long queue, I wound up spending $20,000 or so on new equipment and to send some of my other employees to training so that they could pick up the slack there. I scaled up from like 8 people to 16 people. I did everything that I could so that would never fucking happen again. We all have different metrics for success in these type of things. But for me, if a business should have somebody picking up the phone that could answer basic questions. And one of the litmus tests for me of that is how many zeros in that price. If you can't answer that for me, I have no interest in you. Because you can always haggle when you're buying a car, right? The exact price of the car is always subject to change. But if you can't tell me if a 2022 Toyota Camry is in the hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands, I'm not interested in your used car dealership. You should be able to answer these basic questions. You should be able to say, there's no fucking way in hell a Toyota Camry from 2022 will ever be in the hundreds of thousands. If you can't say that, there's something fishy going on there. Now, I call up somebody else and the person that I'm going to wind up using for this entire job. And they said, well, here, for the type of windows in your, I can't tell you exactly, but since you've sent me some photos and described them, here's an approximate. So if you want this type, which I really don't recommend because it's similar to the builder grade shit you have now, those are approximately this price, which is why they were put in your home. If you want this type, well, then it's going to cost around this amount of money, give or take 30%. If you want this type, it's going to be in this particular price range. Again, can't give you exactly. And if the person that's doing your mortar work is also open to taking out that block around the window and then reinserting it, it may make things a little bit easier for us mortaring around the seams and having to deal with some of this shit over here. To be clear, I forget exactly what they said. It was I'm telephoning that part. If they can do that, this may decrease the price a little bit. And if they're keeping up the scaffolding, that's going to save us a certain amount of money here. I can't give you an exact quote. I have to go there, work this stuff out. But he was able to answer these types of basic questions. How many zeros are there? If a company cannot give you a range for the different possibilities of problem and how many zeros people are usually paying to solve it, then whoever is answering the phone there, in my opinion, is just... It's been forwarded to somebody in another country who is answering the phone for 16 different businesses and 16 different types of businesses. It's an answering service, and it's likely not somebody who is going to be an expert at what they do. I like the fact that when you call this company, you're not always going to get somebody who's very, very sociable because if Kevin's on lunch or Steve's not there, something like that, you're going to talk to somebody who's just a technician who's not really good at dealing with all the intricacies and fun of the most difficult customers. But you're going to get somebody that kind of has a clue what they're doing. Somebody is going to pick up the phone. Somebody is going to answer your question, and they are somebody that even if they don't know the exact price of something and cannot diagnose over the phone, can give you a basic idea of what's going on with your problem. The more that I deal with other companies as a customer and anything related to this type of industry, the more I realize that these basic principles that I have come to take for granted are missing from so many other businesses that it made me feel a little bit more grateful for the people that I have, because this is the type of thing where I wish every business that I dealt with did some of the stuff that this company did. So think about that. When you're dealing with your customers, are you defensively listening and waiting to sell something, or are you actually listening to the things that they need? When you're listening to these things, are you listening to the subtle subtext of what they're saying so that you can put this into context later when you're offering them a solution? So that you could say something like, well, I have a feeling that what you really need is on here, and that's going to be this cheaper option. Because the thing is, she probably would have been open to taking out some loan or putting something on some bullshit 28% APR credit card to be able to pay for full head swap if we presented that as that's what you need. But he was listening. You only need this. That's in the area where it's easy to get stuff. So I can offer it at this price. 5-star. That person has referred at least 5 people that paid over $1,000 for all different types of other stuff. Would I have gotten the business if I did the not listening thing? Probably. But would I have gotten the other 5? Would I have gotten the 5-star review? Would I have had somebody that would walk by the store and show up and say, how are you guys doing today? Who actually brought us smoothies from the place next door one time when they first opened? No. You have to earn the 5-star reviews and the experience. You have to earn that type of high rating, and you have to earn that type of loyalty from your customers. Nobody's going to leave you a 5-star review simply because you did your basic job, simply because you said, you asked for this, I will give quote for this. You said this. It doesn't work that way. You have to go above and beyond, offer a good customer experience. And a part of this comes from sitting in the position of the customer and trying to imagine what it is like to be the customer. What is it like to be the customer of your own company? One of the things that I used to do back in the day is I used to do this with the different jobs. In the beginning, I did everything at my company. As time went on, I would primarily do different things. So a year could go by without me shipping a package to somebody, and every now and then I would take a day to try and do this person's job. The reason I would do that is, am I buying the right supplies for them? Does it make sense how I set stuff up? Is the software that I'm asking them to use a complete piece of shit? I don't know. I need to figure out what it's like to do your job so that I can see if I'm setting you up for failure. And I think it's important to do the same thing when it comes to the customers of your company. Are you thinking through what it is like to be a customer of your own business? And if you're not, why? Take the time. Think about it. Go to some other companies and try and be a customer of them and figure out what is it that annoys you. And once you figure out what it is that annoys you, try and figure out what it's like at your own company. Think through it from the mindset of a customer. Food for thought. Stuff to think about. I still have a lot of work to do on this place. It's going to be fun. You know when the best time is to quit your job to work on something like a free wiki that has no revenue? When you realize you're going to probably be spending 6 figures fixing up a bunch of stuff in your home. Yeah. I make a lot of good life decisions, don't I? I'm very good at the quality life decisions. But the best life decision I've ever made is this little kitty right here. Hello. What a kitty. What a good girl. That's my kitty. You're a good kitty, aren't you? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Brr. Say hi to the people, Blackberry. You want to say hi to the people? You want to say hi? Say hi to the people. Come on. Show them how pretty you are. Say hi. Look at the camera. Come on. You don't want to say anything? You don't want to go meow again? You don't want to go meow again. You want to eat me. It's that fucking Bronner's skin cream. Bronner's is awesome. There's this application called Yuka, and when you scan stuff at the grocery store, it'll tell you what all the crap that's in it, and it automatically comes up with a score. And I know, you're going to say, I don't know if that research is accurate. 99% of you are probably just buying shit based on based on what the fucking packaging looks like, me included. So it's nice to have that. Bronner's always gets the highest score and all that stuff, and I expect it. It's a really cool company. They give a good portion of their profits to charity. The CEO doesn't make more than I think 4 or 5 times as much money as the lowest paid employee. And when I say lowest paid employee, I mean in any country, not just the employees that are in America. The kids that inherited that from their father could have easily destroyed that company and turned it into absolute shit. And they did the exact opposite. They tried to turn it into a beacon of light and hope for the community and other people. And I appreciate that. They kept all the schizo labels on the side. I love reading that stuff. We are all one or all none. That's one of the only religions that I'll get behind and be happy for. The stuff that's on the side of the Dr. Bronner soap bottle. It's very positive, very cool stuff. I'll be part of the we are all one or all none. Loving, happy faith. Okay, Blackberry, that hurts. You gotta stop that shit. Blackberry? God damn it. I could get you fish, chicken, turkey, duck, all the different flavors of cat food, and at the end of the day, the flavor that you like the most is human. You can't eat me, Blackberry. Someday I'm going to wake up and she's going to be licking my eyeball, probably biting it out of my head. You would do that if I didn't feed you in time, wouldn't you? That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. Bye now.